When we think of scary places, we imagine deep, lonely forests, abandoned, crumbling houses, or empty roads late at night. But sometimes, the most terrifying things happen in the places that should feel the safest. A hospital where lives are supposed to be saved can become the place where you come face to face with death, just behind a single door. A psychiatric ward meant to heal, you can become a place that haunts you forever. And the home you know, the one where you hold your child close, can be the very place someone waits for you when you're at your most vulnerable. In today's video, you'll hear 3 true stories. Each one changed the way the person behind it sees the world. Forever. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and get ready to step into a fear with no name in a place that should have been the safest of all. Story 1. The man who came at night with an axe. I used to think working at a small town hospital would be calmer than the chaos of the city. But that night, I learned that sometimes calm is just the mask something much worse wears. I was the night shift nurse at a quiet suburban hospital, the kind with just a few emergency rooms, 1 on-call doctor and 4 nurses split across shifts. That evening I was working 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. It got dark fast. The air was still unnervingly so. The only sound was the occasional metallic clink from the supply room. Around 10 p.m. I was chatting with a co-worker at the front desk about a patient we'd treated earlier, when we heard a soft clack. The front doors slid open. A man stepped inside. At first glance he looked normal, but something felt off. He wore a long grey coat even though it was the middle of a hot summer. He held a stack of papers, and behind him I heard something metallic dragging across the tile. Something heavy, something unseen under the glare of the entrance lights. The nurse next to me sighed, mumbled, probably another junkie looking for meds, and headed to the restroom, leaving me alone. The man walked up. His face was pale, soaked in sweat. His pupils were blown wide like he was on something heavy. He kept running his hands through his hair, grinding his teeth. I kept my voice steady and asked what he needed. He said he had a splitting headache and needed to see a doctor immediately. I started the intake form, but I noticed his agitation growing. His voice was getting louder. He kept scanning the room, shifting his weight. When I told him the doctor was currently with another patient and he'd have to wait about 30 minutes, he slammed his hand on the counter, said nothing, then turned and dragged whatever he had behind him into the waiting area. And that's when I saw it. The light caught it just right. It was an axe. The head was caked in dirt. The blade rusted with what looked like a dry smear of blood across the wood handle. I froze. Keeping my face calm, I quietly slid my phone out of my pocket and dialed the police under the desk. But I knew in this town it'd take at least 20 minutes for them to get here. The nearest station was more than 2 miles away. I ran down the hall and warned the other nurses. We made a quick plan we'd lock him inside the waiting room. The glass there was reinforced and might hold him off until help arrived. It worked. At first. But then he realized. He began screaming, swinging the axe at the reinforced glass, blow after blow, echoing through the hallway like a war drum. The window cracked. Chairs flew. Lights flickered like we were in some horror movie. We were all women. No weapons. Nothing to defend ourselves if that door gave way. And then the doctor came back. He strolled in holding a cup of coffee, clearly confused by our panic. Once I explained, he didn't hesitate. He ran out the back and looped around to enter the waiting room through the staff door. The man didn't notice. He was still hammering at the glass. And then the doctor tackled him, used a plastic zip tie to restrain him from behind, wrestled him to the ground, and pinned him there until police arrived. The man didn't resist anymore. He just lay there panting and laughing like a maniac. When I asked the officers who he was, they said he had no medical record, no ID, nothing traceable. And inside his backpack besides the axe was a notebook filled with names of women. My name was on the list. I never worked the night shift again after that. Story 2. The roommate who didn't blink. I never thought my time in a psychiatric facility would leave me with a scar, deeper than the condition I was admitted for. Back then, I had been diagnosed with severe anxiety and a sleep disorder. After months of failed treatments, my doctor recommended inpatient care. The facility I was transferred to was a small one on the outskirts of town, not many patients, quiet, clinical. I was placed in a shared room. My roommate's name was Jane. She looked to be in her late 20s, thin, frail. So much so that her shoulder blades stuck out through the thin hospital gown. But what I remember most wasn't how she looked. It was her eyes. Jane didn't blink. From the very first night, I sensed something was off. She would sit by the window in a chair, hands resting on a tattered crossword puzzle book. And every time I woke up in the middle of the night, she was still there. Same position. Eyes locked on the page, mouth whispering something I couldn't hear. For 3 nights straight, she didn't move an inch. On the 4th night, as I was drifting off, I heard whispering. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but it grew clearer. Jessie, 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 over and over, like a chant, a flat, empty voice coming from Jane. I opened my eyes. She was staring straight at me, not saying anything else, just staring, wide-eyed, unblinking, emotionless. I pretended to go back to sleep, my heart pounding, one thought repeating in my head. She's not normal. After that, things got stranger. My stuff started disappearing. My shampoo vanished. I found my toothbrush stuffed into Jane's robe pocket. One morning, I woke up to see all my belongings neatly moved to her side of the room. I reported it to the nurses. They told me Jane had a history of severe depression, didn't talk much, and had never shown violent behavior. I had no choice. I had to stay and sleep next to someone who made me too scared to close my eyes. Then came the last night. The worst night. I woke up around 3 a.m. Cold sweat. The room was pitch dark, only the soft green glow of the monitor blinking. I looked around. Jane's bed was empty. I sat up slowly and saw her standing next to my bed. Just standing there, head tilted slightly, eyes locked on my face. In her hand was a pair of scissors. I stammered, "Jane, are you okay?" No answer, just a faint giggle, low, raspy, like it came from deep in her throat. "I'm just cutting a few things, so everything is the way it's supposed to be." I hit the panic button. Nurses rushed in. Jane quickly hid the scissors behind her back, smiling awkwardly, telling them I was just being paranoid. But the scissors were still in her gown. And later the staff discovered she'd stolen them from the med supply cabinet. No one knew how. She was transferred out the next morning. They never told me where she went, and I was discharged 3 days later. What still gives me chills isn't the scissors, or even the way she looked at me that night. It's the notebook I found under her bed the next morning. Page after page, dozens of names written neatly in red ink, and the last one was mine. Story 3, The Two Imposters. I'd heard this story from my mother ever since I was a kid, but it wasn't until I got older that I truly understood how chilling it was. Back then, I was just a few weeks old. My dad worked full time, so it was just my mum and me at home during the day. In those days, it was common for nurses or midwives from the local hospital to visit new mothers at home a few times a week to check on the mum and baby's health. We lived in a quiet neighbourhood where everyone knew each other. There had never been any crime, no scams, nothing suspicious. Until that day. That afternoon, my mum was folding laundry when she heard a knock at the door. She opened it and saw a man and a woman, both dressed in medical uniforms with name badges and hospital IDs. They smiled and introduced themselves as healthcare workers sent to check on her and the baby. They knew her name, knew she had just given birth to a baby girl, knew my exact birth date. Everything they said lined up perfectly. There was no reason to doubt them. So my mum let them in. The woman stayed downstairs, with my mum chatting casually. The man said he would go upstairs to check on the baby. But as he took his first step up the stairs, my mum suddenly felt something was wrong. Every previous visit had been from 2 female nurses, and there had never been a visit without a prior phone call. She asked, did the hospital notify me? Ahead of time, I didn't receive any call. The woman quickly replied, it's just a surprise check-in. But my mum wasn't buying it. She said firmly, my husband is on his way home. He doesn't like strangers in the house when I'm here alone. That sentence made them freeze. The man stopped mid-step. He turned back and mumbled something to the woman. Then, without another word, they both thanked her and walked quickly out the door. My mum watched from the window, across the street. A car was waiting, engine running. A third person was sitting in the driver's seat. My mum was shaking as she called the hospital. They confirmed that no one had been sent out that day. And more importantly, we don't have any male staff conducting postpartum visits. She called my dad, then the police. But all they had to go on were vague descriptions and a partial plate number. The 2 strangers were never found. No one ever learned what they had really planned to do, but one thing was certain. They weren't there to check on anyone's health. Years later, my mum would often repeat the same lesson. That gut feeling, don't ignore it. Sometimes instinct is the only thing standing between you and something truly evil. If she hadn't noticed that one tiny detail, I might not be here today to tell you the story about myself. 3 stories, 3 seemingly normal places, each hiding moments that froze someone in sheer terror. The lesson here isn't to fear everything, but to listen to your instincts, because sometimes that's the only thing that keeps you alive. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who still thinks safe is a guarantee. And if you've ever experienced something chilling, something you still can't explain, leave your story in the comments below. You never know, it might just become the start of our next video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the dark.